Okay, first of all, I have to warn you, test is tomorrow. And I'd say this is going to be probably one of your uh, I don't know. I don't feel like it's an incredibly hard test. Judging by the last test that you just took and you had an average of an A, I feel like this could be that same way again. But I almost don't want to tell you that because some people will be like, "Oh, it's going to be easy. I don't have to study." Well, here's how I know you're going to study. At least I hope. I'm going to have you turn in the entire review sheet as your homework for tonight. It's going to be a little more intense night than normal. I'm going to try to keep this lesson fairly short, but do the entire review sheet tonight. Check it, and then you can say, "Okay, I think I'll do well tomorrow." Okay. So here's some thoughts. If you had this and this, is it possible that you could write a system of matrix equations and then solve using your calculator? Yes, it is. Can you please just write the system of equations? So if some of you are like, well, I know how to put in the calculator, but I don't know how to write the system, well, then you're going to lose points because on the test, it's going to ask you to tell me what the system of equation is. And you'd say 1, 1, 1, negative 1. What goes in this one? It's the most confusing one. It's just an x and y. And then the last one would be 12 and 8. We're going to call this matrix A. We're going to call this matrix B. And I hope you know how to put those in the calculator. And then do an inverse strategically to solve. If you don't know how to do that part, at least put in your A matrix and put in your B matrix, and then we'll talk. But if you know what to do, do it. And get the answer and compare with the kid next to you. I'm going to pause for a second while I give this a try. Okay, so for the people that could use some review on how to put this in the calculator, I am going into the matrix. I'm going into edit mode, and then I hit enter. And now it is a 2 by 2 matrix. If you look at the A matrix there on the left, it's a 2 by 2. 2 by 2, enter. And then it's 1, 1, 1, negative 1. There we go. And then I'm going to go edit my B matrix. I go into matrix. I go over to edit. Then I go down to B, and I hit enter. And it's a 2 by 1, not a 3 by 1. And it is 12 and 8. All right, and then I hit quit. I've got my matrices all entered, my 2 matrices. Okay, now what? Well, imagine for a moment that this was a problem like 6y equals 18. Wouldn't you just divide both sides by 6? Yeah, but technically you can't divide matrices. So couldn't you do the inverse of 6? Yeah, just to remember, 6 to the negative 1, do you get that means the same as 1/6? And you do it to both sides. You get what I'm saying? And then y equals 1/6 of 18. So you do the inverse on both sides. That's what we want to do here also. 1/6 to 18 is 3. So this is the matrix I want to get rid of. So I do the inverse of A. Now technically I do it on this side. Oh, that's negative 1, sorry. A to the negative 1 on this side. And then these two will cancel, which means this goes away, which means technically it just turns into the 1 matrix. But the 1 matrix is actually 1, 0, 0, 1. But you don't really need to know all that. Because even though there's technically this 1 matrix out in front, x, y will be alone, and you can get the answer by doing the other side. If I do the inverse of A times B, that's how I get my final answer. I did the inverse A on the left side, and it did all that complicated stuff, but in the end, it just comes down to xy will be inverse of A times B. How many of you already knew that and already did that on your calculator? That's a good sign. If you didn't, then watch. Here's how you do it. Inverse of A. I got to get my calculator to move over here for a second. Come on. It's because the recording thing's in the way. I'm going to get it over here. All right. Inverse of A. Oh, my. Okay. View. Somehow I full screened the calculator and I don't know how to fix it. Just a second. There. I had to grab it with the mouse. What a pain. Okay. I'm going to go matrix A. But I don't really want A. I want the inverse of A. So I hit that key right there. Times matrix B. And there's my answer. 10, 2. Raise your hand if you had that answer. Now, in the context of my question, is it like 10 747s and 2 llamas? Well, you'd have to know what we were talking about. What was X's and what was Y's? Maybe this is a problem about me buying fruit. Maybe I was bought 1 llama. No, that's not a fruit. 1 pear and 1 peach. All right. So now I'm going to make it a word problem. That's what makes it harder. Ready? If I get 1 dozen eggs and 2 peaches, total cost $4. That's an equation. And by the way, on the dozen eggs, we're just going to say it's like 1 package of eggs. They happen to come in dozens, right? Okay, so 1 set of eggs plus 2 peaches. And it equals how much money? $4. You should have an equation for that. Now I'm going to give you one more, just to show you, like, it's hard to know how to set these up until you've done it. All right. What if I said that 5 peaches would be equal to $3 plus a set of eggs? Just asking. You know what to write? Yes, sir. Yes, I was saying 1 package of eggs, so 1 E. I know that is 12 eggs, and you would know that's 12 eggs, but... All right. You had to write the second one. I want to hear the second story. Yeah. All right. So the second story, how many did we start with? 5 peaches was equal to $3 plus what? A pack of eggs. All right, now that's a story. It's a lot harder to set up from a story, but you can do it. Would you tell me that the first equation that you got? Now, is she right? Well, is she exactly the same as you? Well, it depends. Did you use E for eggs? Raise your hand if you used E for eggs. Totally okay. She chose to use X for eggs. But do you get that brings up an important point? We should define our variables. She's saying X equals eggs. You could have said E was eggs. And E is for eggs is a little easier to know that E would be eggs. Okay, and then must be that Y in your scenario, what's Y? Peaches. Could she do it this way and you do it a different way? Sure. Does the X have to be first in the equation? Nope. You could have it the other way around. But what for sure has to match up is that when I'm all done, do you get I couldn't have my answer like this? If I line them up like that, it's going to not work. You have to have all the X's in a column, all the Y's in a column, or if you used E's and P's, you have to keep all the E's in the same column as each other. All right, so this second equation was harder. Would you read me what you had? First of all, did you use X for eggs? Okay, awesome. Then tell me what you did for your second equation. What I originally said, yeah, not before it's rearranged. And I think, didn't I start with the 5y when I said it? Okay. 5y equals what? 3 plus x. There we go. And I on purpose did not make it all line up nice, because we won't on the test either. Okay, so now I got to rearrange that. And so, if so, I need to get this x to the other side. And do you get that means negative x plus 5y would equal 3. I know some of you are like, but I did E and P. Well, that's fine. Did you line up your E's? Did you line up your P's? Okay. And next, this is important. When I make this little matrix equation for it, everybody knows it's going to be a 4 to 3. Everybody knows it's 1, 2, negative 1, and 5. But this is important. Should I just automatically put E and P here? Does it matter? Oh, it totally matters. You got to think. The first column has to be the first number you put in. So I chose to have x's first. Therefore, this has to be an x first. This has to be x and then y. If you used E first and then P, then you have to have E on the top and P on the bottom. Pausing for a second here. Okay, now, in the end, when we're all done, we are going to be asked for, like, how much did peaches cost? And if you got confused on which one was peaches and which one was eggs, you're obviously going to lose points. So you got to be really careful about setting these up. All right, now, if this is the A matrix and this is the B matrix, everybody go and find the answer. And one more thing, it's not going to work out super nice. If you end up with decimals, we are going to ask for the answer as a fraction. So know which buttons to push on your calculator to get your decimal answer to turn into a fraction answer. Hint, it's under the math button. What? A little louder. Good question. Yes, I get that in this one, this is about how much does a dozen eggs cost. I get, and decimals actually work better. I just know what you have to know for the test, and I'm saying know how to change it to fractions. So let's just have you change it to a fraction. You can always change it back. And actually, if it's on the screen as a decimal and a fraction, cool, you can use either one. Whichever one makes the more sense. All right, so if you're kind of new at this, you're going to watch me put these in. I'm going to go to matrix. I'm going to change my A matrix. So I'm going over to edit. And then I'm going to edit my A matrix to be, it is already a 2 by 2, so that's good. And it should be 1, 2, negative 1, 5. Awesome. Now I'm going to go edit my B matrix. Matrix, edit, B, enter. And it is a 2 by 1. Awesome. And then it is 4 and 3. And now I quit, which is one of the weirdest things to have to do. And I clear off my screen so I have nothing else to distract me. And now I'm going to say inverse of A, and then times by B. So here's matrix A, and then I make it the inverse with this little key right here. And then I'm going to times by matrix B. Enter. Boom, it's 2, 1. Did you guys get 2, 1? Awesome. If those had been decimals, would you know how to make it into fractions? Okay, good. It's math, enter, enter, if that ever happens to you. All right, and if this is a question, since it said eggs, and I had my eggs as my x, it's $2 for eggs and $1 for peaches. That's unbelievable. Maybe? Yeah, I hope so. All depends on if you get the fancy kind of eggs or the cheap kind of eggs and how big your peaches are, I guess, or if peaches are in season or not, but that seems like reasonable numbers. Okay, so that is the hardest thing. Now let's go through some easy things, because a lot of times I have this pattern with this class. You guys will get the hard questions right, and then some of you guys will futz up the easy ones and like, I screwed up one number on 3 problems on the R2s, and now I can't get a good grade anymore. All right, so let's see if you can keep from futzing, that's what I said, the R2s. You can listen to it, it's on video. 1 for A and 3 times, and I'm only going to have one variable. 7 negative 1. Do you know how to multiply? Because your calculator can't do this one for you, because there's an A. Give it a shot, by hand. Hint, your answer has an A in it. Could even have more than one A in it, in different places. Well, I'm going to go through the whole process because it's the review day and I'm trying to teach you. So, in case you missed this, this is a 2 by 2 and this is a 2 by 1. And since these are set up this way where the inside ones match, it'll work. It wouldn't work if it was reversed because a 1 would be lining up with a 2. All right, but this did work and my answer is a 2 by 1, which happens to look just like this. So my answer is going to be like this, and I like to put a couple Easter eggs there where I can then drop in what? Well, this is row 1, column 1. So now I can say here's row 1, here's column 1, and I go 7 times 1 and 4 times negative 1. That's 7 and negative 4, and I add them, and that makes 3. Raise your hand if you had a 3 in that top spot. All right. If you didn't, try to figure out what you did wrong. Okay, and KT, can you tell me how to do this part? Row what, column what? Okay, and that means I should move this down, and I'll take these guys. Here, I can move them separately now. There and there. So tell me what goes together. 7A. 3 times negative 1 makes negative 3. And then do I add them? Yes. Now I could say plus negative 3, or I could just say minus 3. That is adding them together. It just happens to be a negative 3. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Okay, if you didn't catch that, look through it. Okay. Here's another one that's similar. Solve. Calculator can't do all of this for you. You have to know what to do. Calc could be allowed, but it could do this with a calculator, but I think it'd actually be faster to just do by hand. Now on the test, I want to warn you, if a kid just has the answer like A equals this matrix, and they don't show any work, you will not get the credit. You have to show some work. I know you're going to do a lot of adding in your head right now, which I totally would do myself. But you have to at least show some work. Do you get I'm going to add that to both sides? So then it won't be here anymore, and I will get added to this. And I'll get 2A equals 9, negative 3, 1, and 6. Am I done? No, I'm showing some work along the way. And do you remember at the end you can't divide by 2? There's no dividing with matrices. But I could multiply by 1/2. All right, and I multiply by 1/2 here because that's its reciprocal. No, not its reciprocal, sorry. It's multiplicative inverse is what we're hitting here because we call it an inverse later. So I'm multiplying by 1/2 because it's the multiplicative inverse. And there's my final answer. 9 over 2, negative 3 over 2, 1 over 2, and 6 over 2, but that can be reduced. What's 6 over 2 the same as? 3, you are correct. There's your final answer for that one. Any questions on that one? Okay, and here's one of the hardest ones. See if you can handle this. And then if so, I'm done. Would you please find the determinant of A? If A is this, what's the determinant of A? And what's the inverse of A? But you got to do it with without a calculator, because I'm changing something. I'm cheating. This 4, I'm changing it to an H. Otherwise, you could use your calculator. Now you can't. Okay, so I hope you remember the determinant was that times that, which is H, and that times that, which is 0, and then you add them or subtract them? You subtract them. Because this is a 0, it really didn't matter. The determinant was just H. Okay, what kind of determinants are bad? If you ever get a determinant that's equal to what? 0. So do you wouldn't want H to be 0? Because if H came out to 0, then this would have been 0 minus 0, which would be 0. And why is the determinant of 0 bad? Because then when you put it into this formula, 1 over the determinant would be 1 over 0. And you don't want a 0 on the bottom. All right, so here's how you find the inverse. 1 over H times, is it just the original? 1, 0, negative 3H? No. I got to do some adjusting there. It's 1 over H times this and this switch places. So now H is here and 1 is there. And the 0 becomes opposite of 0, but it's still 0. And negative 3 becomes the opposite of that, which is positive 3. And now, if I actually multiply this all out, sorry, this got a little bent over there. I now have 1 over H times H, which is just 1. 1 over H times 0, which is just 0. 1 over H times 3, which is 3 over H. And 1 over H times 1, which is 1 over H. There's your final answer. Notice it's got H's in it. That's why your calculator couldn't get the answer. But one more thing. What if I just said, oh, just kidding, H is actually 3. You get to be really easy to get your answer. Just put a 3 in there. Put a 3 in there. Okay. You've covered pretty much everything you could possibly want to know. The rest of the time is yours. You got a review sheet. You got all the answers on the review sheet. Get it done, because if there's one thing I've been consistent about homework-wise, is that I put in almost every single review. So you're going to be asked to Dropbox it tomorrow when you take the test. So get her done. Tomorrow, no homework. You'll have like 3 days off with no homework. Just work hard tonight. And that's all I got for you for today.